special call meeting of the Sullivan County Commission this morning. Happy to have you with us. We'll get right into our agenda. Commissioner Johnson, would you deliver the invocation?
Sir. Bow our heads. Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the privilege and honor to serve the people of this county, Lord. We thank you for all the blessings you've given us as a people. We thank you for the special bonds and opportunities you've given us over the last 4 years, Father. Lord, we thank you for leadership. We pray for Mayor Venable and all the leaders throughout the county, Lord, as we move forward. We thank you for the special time together, Lord. And I pray, Lord, you be with each and every commissioner as they go home and go on their ways, Lord, and those that are staying. We pray, Lord, that your spirit will be with them. Pray, Father, Lord, that each commissioner vote on the precepts of their conscience, Lord, and let the scriptures and the Constitution be their guide. We thank you for all the blessings you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Mr. Vance, would you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Here's that we have all our commissioners at their desks, so Madam Clerk, would you take the roll? Board is open. Please record your presence, please. Is everyone checked in? Madam Clerk, take the roll.
22 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of commission minutes from the previous meeting, but we will save that for the first meeting of the. Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe this had to be the last opportunity for somebody that was here to approve these. So I'll tell you what. I will take a motion to approve those minutes as they're issued. Mr. Herron, Commissioner Carr, Commissioner Crawford. We have a second. Any corrections, additions to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. So we have that out of the way with people who were here. So next up is the public comment section, and I would remind our guests this morning that we're open to public comment, that this meeting is called for the specific purpose of considering 3 resolutions that establish a budget for Sullivan County for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. Neal, as usual, has presented me with the sign-up sheet, and I would remind the audience, if you're not on the sheet, and at some point during the public comment section, when we're in recess, we will allow you to speak. And first up, we have Mr. Chad Austin, who addressed it. Or would you want another shot at it, Mr. Austin?
Yes, sir.
If you would give us your name and address for our record.
Chad Austin, 4810 Lake Park Drive in Kingsport. Thank you for your time this morning. I did see a copy of the full budget proposal, and appreciate those that showed it to me. I looked through a couple of things, and I commended you for keeping the money in the county budget for the renovation funds for the school. But it turns out that it's not really in there. The money that's appropriated to the county school renovation fund is actually coming out of the fund balance, which they may or may not have asked you all to do. I don't know. But I would request that you all continue to fund their renovation fund out of the county general fund budget like you have in the past, and let them use. You've already given them the money; it's in their fund balance, and let them use it as they see fit instead of making them use their fund balance to keep their schools up. I think you all should invest that money out of the county general fund into the schools. Over the past few months, I've heard nothing but complaints about about how the schools look and how they're maintained. I think you need to put your money behind
Next up, we have Sam Jones signed up, Commissioner-elect. Mr. Jones, name and address, please.
Good morning, Sam Jones, 6329 Heatherwood Lane, Kingsport, Tennessee. I just want to say thank you to each of you that have served the past 4 years, so maybe longer than that have been here, and thank you for your service. I wish you best in your future endeavors, and for those that will be coming back, I'll be leaning on you for your knowledge of where we are in the future. But again, I just want to thank each of you for the time that you committed to the citizens of Sullivan County. It's not always appreciated. I know that from past experience myself. But thank you very much from my family to you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate you being here this morning. Before I close the public hearing, is there anyone else in our audience that would like to address the commission for any reason? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to our next item on the agenda, which is our resolution agenda. As I noted, we have 3 old business resolutions, which are before the commission for second and final reading. And without objection, we will move into that. And item number 1, Mr. Bailey, you're recognized.
Anyone that does not have a copy of the budget as proposed, in other words, people here the other day have their copy, then you've got it. But if any of you don't, we've got extra copies. If you'll hold your hand up, we'll get them to you. And that goes for the audience as well. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. So we're ready for item number 1. Commissioner Williams, you're recognized on item number 1. I'm sorry.
Ready?
We're ready.
Item number 1 is that this will be on second reading, these first 3 resolutions, and the first one would be to set the tax rate at $2.55, which is the same tax rate that we had last year. Item number 1.
Mr. Williams moves for adoption of item number 1, seconded by Commissioner Valerie. Any discussion properly before the commission? Have a motion on the floor. Seeing no discussion, we're ready to vote. When the board opens, please cast your vote on item number 1. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 1 is adopted as presented. Next up, item number 2, Mr. Williams, you're recognized on item number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution to authorize appropriations for various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Sullivan County. And that is required that we separate that into that resolution and pass it like it is written. And this is on second reading also.
Mr. Williams moves for adoption on second reading, seconded by Commissioner Valerie. Proper motion on the floor. We have discussion. Any questions for the sponsor on item number 2? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on item number 2. The board is open. Cast your vote on item number 2. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Item number 2, having received the necessary majority, is adopted as presented. Moving on to item number 3. Mr. Shaw, did you wish to be recognized on the previous, or on this? Okay. Item number 3, Mr. Williams, you're recognized.
Resolution number 3 is to appropriate funds to charitable and civic organizations for the fiscal year 2018-2019. This is on second reading also, and is required to be listed separate from the budget itself, although they are in the budget.
Mr. Williams renews his motion for adoption of item number 3 on second reading, seconded by Commissioner Valerie. The floor is open for discussion of the motion. Mr. Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I've given copies of 4 amendments, proposed amendments to Ms. Teresa.
Thank you.
And, I give Mr. Williams one and Mr. Bailey one, if that helps. And I have a total of 4 amendments affecting the grand total of $20,000. It'd probably be easier for me to quickly summarize, and then we could discuss each amendment separately. During the budget hearings, our committee, the administrative committee, of course, reviewed several organizations. These are all nonprofits we're talking about. I propose to eliminate the $5,000 appropriation for the Life Bridge. They came to us last year. We didn't think it merited our support, and they came to us again this year. We didn't think it merited our support, but the budget committee, I guess, added the $5,000 back on. My personal view is we're going down a slippery slope when we start adding more nonprofits. We're going to come to a point someday where we're in a real crunch, and we're not required to support these particular organizations. This specific organization is under the auspices of Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority. It's they proposed us support to their job soft skills training program. The KHRA is mainly funded through the federal government for federal public housing programs. Again, that seems kind of backwards to me that we would be giving the feds money. I would take the $5,000 there, and I would award it to the Bluff City Rescue Squad. If you recall a few minutes ago, Mr. Bailey mentioned that we'd had the presentations from volunteer firefighters and rescue squads and so forth. And talking to Mr. Jerry Fleener and others, this association reached an informal agreement where they were going to hold the line on asking for more money. 2 organizations did ask for some more money, the Bluff City as well as the Bristol Fire Department, which I'll address here in a second. But the Bluff City has a compelling reason, and that is that they're doing more calls than they would normally do because they've been covering for the Holston Rescue Squad, and it's caused additional expense and wear and tear on their equipment. And I think they're highly deserving of the $5,000 that I would remove from the other. Next, the Bristol Fire Department. Their fire chief came in and asked for $150,000 increase, which was huge. I mean, it was more than what he was getting to begin with. And I'm trying to summarize his case. Of course, Bristol Fire Department or Bristol City is elected to have an ambulance service. That's voluntary on their part. They could very well participate in our county ambulance service if they so chose. That, of course, does incur quite a bit of expense. He also equated his capabilities in specialized rescue to the Kingsport life-saving crew. I don't agree with that, and others that I've talked to are very knowledgeable, much more so than I am in this area, says this is not an apples-to-apples comparison. So I would propose to withdraw $15,000 from the proposed amount which still gives them an increase. They'll still have an increase of over $13,000. And finally, I would take the $15,000 and award it to Kingsport, City of Kingsport, specifically for animal control. I feel very strongly about this. Full disclosure, I am on the PetWorks board as a non-voting advisory board member. But I feel very strongly about this. Essentially, my constituents, John's constituents, Joe's, they're paying for 2 animal control services. So I think $15,000 is a modest amount to a lot toward Kingsport. That's the summary. I'm prepared to go amendment by amendment now.
Please do so. If
Thank
would.
you.
Amendment number 1 to the budget resolution.
Yes, sir. So, and I put it in the format that was given to me by Ms. Taylor, but essentially the amendment would read, eliminate total budgeted amount, $5,000 to zero out this program. The affected organization is Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Agency Life Bridge Program, account code 55900.
You've heard the amendment. I'll ask the sponsor of the resolution if he will accept the amendment or would like to have a vote on it. You want to vote on any refuse to accept the amendment? We have a motion by Commissioner Shull to amend. We need a second. Second by Crawford, Gardner, and I believe Mr. Hood. So we're open for discussion. Ms. Calvin, you're recognized.
Can I go ahead and make an amendment?
No, this is
Okay.
on amendment number 1. You're not ready for that, okay. Okay, we have a list. Mr. Williams, you wish to address the amendment? No. Okay. You're very good. Commissioner Crawford, you're.
Well, the reason that I would support this amendment is because when they made their presentation and we got the portfolio that they gave us, there were so many repetitive things that they were doing that were already available to people. And I think that's the reason that at that particular time, and even our discussion, that the administrative committee could not support this. Because all the services, or many of them that I remember, were just, they were available to the people already. So I could not support this amount being given to them.
So you support amendment number 1. Commissioner Harris.
Thank you. And to echo what Mr. Crawford saying, I too support Amendment 1, and I hope others do. Bluff City has stepped up and filled a void that's been left out there, and they've served this. Thank you, Pat.
I don't have the amendment before me, but is that to transfer the $5,000 from Lockridge to?
Well, I say in my amendment to eliminate, but then my second amendment, which we'll hit here in a minute, I say give
So
$5,000.
the amendment is to eliminate the $5,000.
Yes, sir.
To Lockridge.
Okay.
Just want to make sure I did that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that I remember whenever the lady came and spoke to our committee that spoke with Lockridge, she was telling us, I had asked the question, where's your service areas at? And a lot of their service areas was out of Sullivan County. So I don't feel like it was Sullivan County taxpayers' responsibility to serve people that's outside of the county.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on amendment number 1 to item number 3? Commissioner, is voice vote all right with you?
I'm ready to vote. Yes, sir.
Is a voice vote or a roll call?
I would prefer a roll call.
Roll call vote. Amendment number 1 is properly moved and seconded. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on amendment number 1, roll call vote?
Bowery,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Parker Road,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Heron,
Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Hauser, I'm sorry, he's absent, Johnson,
Dawson,
Yes.
Kilgore,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Bobby Russell,
Yes.
Cheryl Russell,
Yes.
Show,
Yes.
Stanley, Vance,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, amendment number 1 is adopted to item number 3. Mr. Shelley, you're recognized on amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. So, to recap, we just removed $5,000, but I want to now award that $5,000 to the Bluff City Rescue Squad, the affected organization. The account code is 54420. The amendment would read, increase budgeted amount, $56,331, by $5,000 to amended amount totaling $61,331. Again, I think that these folks are very deserving, and our administrative committee did recommend that we increase.
You've heard the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Harris. Properly on the floor, ready for discussion. Commissioner Harr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I too believe that the Bluff City Rescue Squad is, and fire departments trying to handle their services as best they can. And the increased load that's been put on them, has been said. I think I totally agree with the increase in trying to help those folks out, get them on their way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harr. Any further discussion on amendment number 2 to item number 3? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on amendment number 2. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote? Roll call vote.
Bowery,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Cotton, Cole,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Parker Road,
Yes.
Harr,
Yes.
Aaron,
Did you say Harold? Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kilgore,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Bobby Russell,
Yes.
Cheryl Russell, Show,
Yes.
Stanley, Vance,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 2 is adopted. To amendment number 2 is adopted. Item number 3 on today's budget. Commissioner Shaw is recognized on item amendment number 3.
Thank you, sir. Number 3 concisely would reduce the budgeted amount. The budgeted amount in our budget here is an increase from the previous year of just over $28,000. So, amendment, this is an affected organization, City of Bristol Fire Department, account code 54310. Amendment to read as follows. Decrease budgeted amount, which is $169,690, by $15,000 to amended amount totaling $154,690. Recall that the previous year was $141,408, so this is an increase of over $13,000, even though this particular amendment decreases the budget amount by $15,000. Hope I didn't confuse anybody.
You've heard the explanation of item number 3. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Gardner. On the floor for discussion now, before the commission properly, Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Well, I don't support this amendment, and I'll say why I don't. A couple of years ago, the commissioners in the lower end of the county came with a need to this commission about going in partnering with the city of Kingsport about putting a paid person at the Kingsport Life Saving Crew. And I believe the city agreed to go 75,000, and the county agreed to increase the Kingsport Life Saving Crew funding by $75,000. Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department came and made a request for $150,000, and the committees looked at their request and recommended $28,000, which was basically cutting the $75,000 in half. And now you're wanting to cut it again. Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department does all the rescue and the EMS inside the city of Bristol that I represent. I disagree with this. If this is the way we're wanting to do, I will make an amendment to cut the $75,000 out of the Kingsport Life Saving Crew budget this year. Because the people of Bristol pays taxes just like the people in Kingsport. They're entitled to have some of that money brought back to help pay for the rescue services in the city of Bristol. We've done set precedents with the Kingsport Life Saving Crew in the city of Kingsport, and I think Bristol's entitled to at least 75, and they're willing to accept the 28, and you're trying to cut them again. So I will not support this, and I'm asking my other colleagues not to support it either.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Next up, Mr. Boyd. You're recognized, Mr. Boyd.
I agree with Mark for all the reasons he stated, but also a little more on that is when the chief city fire, Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department made his presentation, yeah, he did ask for 150, and Pat, you alluded to this, maybe not apples to apples on the higher end rescue stuff, but that was just part of the presentation. What Mark is alluding to is more important. In Bristol, the fire department does the ambulance, the rescue, and the fire. If you look at the per capita distribution of ambulance, rescue, and fire in Kingsport and compare it to Bristol, it's way out of whack. He was trying to bring all of that in together. As we discussed in our administrative committee, I thought maybe it was a little overreach. So my recommendation, which we passed, was a very modest increase compared to what he was asking for and compared to what it really should be, apples to apples as far as funding. Even if you consider that there's some super high-end hazardous stuff that only Kingsport can do, if you take that out of the mix, Bristol's still doing all the first responder in the city. That's all the things that in Kingsport is done by the Kingsport Life Saving Crew and the fire department. You add those two together, figure them out per capita, and Bristol's still way behind, even if we give them this $28,000. But I felt, as a sort of an olive branch on our committee, that it was too much too fast. But if you scale it back this much, then it's sort of a slap in the face to those of us in Bristol, because we're not even asking to be brought up to even status. So, I mean, not that I disagree with your next amendment that you want to have equal treatment on the animals, but I think you went on a fishing expedition to find out where to take the money from, and this looked pretty good. But I just don't think it's fair. In light of what Mark said about the money was added in for Kingsport, but remember, our fire department is doing both the jobs in Bristol that are done in Kingsport by those two agencies, and this doesn't even bring it up to where it ought to be. So I would urge my colleagues also to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Shelley, you want me to move on to the next week? You're recognized.
Brian Boyd is a friend of mine, and I respect Brian, but I would point out that Kingsport's population is fully twice as big as Bristol's, and that this amendment still results in an increase in their budget, but in the amount we award to them of almost 10%. So I'm ready to take a vote on it.
Commissioner Valerie Vance and Russell would like to be recognized. Commissioner Valerie.
Thank you. Mark, I just wanted to kind of bring a little clarity. I'm not saying where I'm at on this yet, but in the lower end, the purpose in that $75,000 was for first responder and for them to help in the county with the backup calls. And we have the EMA folks in the upper end of the county. So my question would be, is Bristol going to answer calls in the county with that additional money?
Well, they do all the time.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably Bristol's part of Sullivan County.
Okay, I didn't think you're playing the game with my question, but that was I just wanted the commissioners to be clear that the purpose in that was with the heavy rescue, and we didn't want to duplicate services in the lower end. So, and there was a discrepancy in what was going to the upper end of the county and lower end of the county when that money was discussed. So, just make I hope the commissioners understand that.
Well, I guess
Mr. Vance,
I'll take that point, and I understand that, but I've supported putting paid people at the volunteer organizations and also Kingsport Life Saving Crew concern, and I wanted to pull up just a figure. Let's compare apples to apples. In Kingsport, the Kingsport Life Saving Crew gets $200,830, and the Kingsport Fire Department gets $187,225. They get $387,000 for fire and rescue. City of Bristol is requesting $169,000. We don't have a life-saving crew in Bristol to get any funding for. So if you look at $387,000 going to the lower end for fire and rescue for the city of Kingsport, and Bristol's asking for $169,000, and they're asking for a $28,000 increase. I mean, we're still not even in comparison apple to apples to give them their $28,000 request. So we need to, if we're going to cut Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department, we need to be looking at cutting Kingsport Life Saving Crew too.
I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I just want to make it clear how that happened.
Well, I understand. I'm not against the principle and purpose how it happened.
Right.
I'm just saying in fairness to the city of taxpayers of Bristol, their request, I agree, $150,000 was steep, and I respected the administrative committee's decision of going $28,000. But in equalizing it out, I thought it was a good move. At least it was some compromise in some degree to get the fire department a little bit more money in Bristol.
And I know we do have a mutual aid agreement with them, but that may be something that we will talk to them about, this extra money, that if there was an overload in the calls in the county, that they would respond with that.
Oh, yeah, they do it all the time. And this county goes into the city. Well, that whole, the ambulance and rescue stuff's changed in Bristol, but it's a lot different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Mr. Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I can't support this amendment. On the administrative committee, they did come, the Bristol Fire Chief, and gave the presentation for the $150,000 increase. And we thought it was just a modest increase to do the $28,000. So then to come along and then cut it by $15,000 would be a steep decrease. Our constituents, the ones that we represent, pay city and county taxes, and to me, the best way that I can represent my constituents that voted me in would be to vote against this amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Commissioner Hill, you're welcome to reply anytime you like. I'm leaving your mic on, so Commissioner Kilgore, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple of questions, I guess. How many life-saving crews are there in Sullivan County?
I'll let you address that to the sponsor because he's recognized.
Well, I can count them up. They're on the schedule of contributions that we were given. Would you ask life-saving crews?
Right.
Well, let's see.
The discussion said there wasn't a life-saving crew in Bristol.
No. What I said was that the specialized life-saving capabilities in Bristol are not the same as the capabilities in the Kingsport life-saving crew. The life-saving crew is much greater and more specialized capabilities, and of course serve the entire county. They just happen to be housed in Kingsport.
I would agree with that, and also another thing about the Kingsport life-saving crew, I believe is correct. They are probably the premier life-saving crew in Northeast Tennessee. They respond to things, I don't care if it's in Jefferson County or Scott County, Virginia, or wherever, they do respond, and they have equipment and abilities to do things that no other life-saving crew in this county or Northeast Tennessee have the capabilities that they have. And I would support taking anything away from them, because true in northeast Tennessee, as far as that goes. They've been doing it for a lot of years. So, I can't, I just don't think this is the right thing to do with, taking money from one place and trying to put it somewhere else. But, I can't use the lifesaving crew at Kingsport as something that they want to take something away from in order to give it to a, and I'm not saying that another system shouldn't be able to grow and help, and, I don't know that funding helps somebody grow, but, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. Mr. Neal, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to, I really pushed my button. I think Mark may very well have answered this, but, Bristol City, they do move outside the boundaries of the city and respond to people, outside, in Sullivan County rather than, stop at the city line. So, I've seen that firsthand, so I know they do that.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Anything else? Thank you. Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Shoulders, did I hear it?
Mayor, I think the greater lesson here is that when the next commission convenes, we probably ought to resuscitate the committee, the ad hoc committee that she was appointed a few years ago on emergency management, previously chaired by John Crawford. And I would suggest the chair probably shouldn't be from either District 2 or District 11. And so in light of maintaining perfect harmony of the day, I will withdraw this amendment and move on to amendment number 4.
Without objection, the sponsor has withdrawn amendment number 3, and Commissioner Williams, you're recognized for withdrawing the amendment. Was the only amendment you want, since you're sponsor of the bill? You're recognized.
I won't speak to this amendment, is that all right?
Well, he's already withdrawn it.
But I'd like to hear what Mr. Williams says.
Okay, that's great. Mr. Williams, you're recognized.
He withdrew it.
You're recognized. You're on. You're on. Darlene misled you there. You're recognized, Eddie.
I just want to make one point. Mr. Vance made it very well. He just made it in reverse. I want to straighten that out for him. But the 75 in Kingsport and the city and county is 150,000. The rescue squads are operating in the lower end of the county for the county and help the city when the cities are overcrowded, are now getting somewhere around $75,000 each, $225,000 less than these rescue squads in the upper end of Sullivan County, which do the same type of work. The reason being for that, when we did the ones in the upper end of the county, they came to work as county employees, and they have insurance, life insurance, all those other things at a cost of about $75,000 per department. The lower end, as normal in Mr. Vance's case, especially, that is my last day, he can't come back. So anyway, we're operating much more conservative and much more efficient, and we're able to do that. And I think Mr. Vance would help do that. He should make a contribution some. But anyway, we're still way behind in the lower end, is what I'm saying. So, but I don't want to cut anybody. It can stay where it is. I just want to make that point.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And we're amending your resolution. Commissioner Shelley, you're recognized for item number 4, I believe, amendment number 4.
Thank you. And my last one, unless something happens that I'm not aware of. But I will have to appeal to Mr. Bailey to ensure that the funds are sufficient to do this, because now this amendment would have to be funded from our fund balance. But it's simply to award $15,000 to the city of Kingsport, specifically earmarked for animal control.
You've heard the motion for amendment number 4. We have a second. Seconded by Mr. Gardner. Now we're open for discussion. Any discussion on amendment number 4 as presented by Commissioner Shaw? Mr. Vance, you're right.
Well, let's have a little fun. Bristol does animal control also. So can we amend your motion to increase $10,000 to the city of Bristol for animal control?
No. I want to remind you that Kingsport provides 61% of the tax revenue to this county.
Mr. Vance, are you?
I'm amending his recommend, I guess I'm amending his amendment to increase it by 10,000 to the city of Bristol, also for animal control.
You've heard the motion, we have a second. Second by Commissioner Neal. We have amendment number 1 to amendment number 4 to item number 3. Did I get that right? And we have Commissioner Boyd, you seek recognition on the amendment.
I'll try to be brief. I would ask my two friends who will both be here next month, and I want to put this to bed and follow what Pat said. A recommendation I made at the administrative committee about these fire departments, rescue squads, that all needs to be, you need to go back to the drawing board, not throw out the baby with the bathwater, but look at all of it all over again. And I would say the same about animal control, pet works, animal shelter. Needs to be looked at in a more circumspect way than just these amendments today. I would ask you to table both, and as you both continue on the commission, work hard to figure out a better way to address animal control problems, because Mark's right, Pat's right. You know, if we're going to have something separate, everybody needs to be treated fairly, but we do animal control in Bristol, and maybe the ratios are not what Pat would like, but some direct to Kingsport and nothing to Bristol is not a good idea. And so anyway, I would say that's an issue that needs more looking at than just this amendment today. You all should look at that going forward and pull both of those and move on.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Schultz, would you like to respond?
It's not an apples-to-apples comparison, and I want to see my amendment voted on.
Okay.
I guess procedurally, we have to act on his.
We'll get to it. I'll just give you the opportunity to respond to any discussion. Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Commissioner Boyd. I don't think right now is the time to be looking at the animal control with any of them to see where to allocate the money. Once we move forward, I think the next commission and stuff, maybe we can all get together and see where to add some money to the shelters that are in need. So I agree with Commissioner Boyd.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, Commissioner Kilgore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comment was parliamentary, you cannot table something at this meeting because it has to come up before the meeting is closed if you table it.
Right.
So the
Go ahead.
request should have been to ask him to withdraw, not to table. I used the wrong word. Thank you.
And I didn't register it as a request either. And you're exactly right, Mr. Kilgore. Commissioner Hood, you're recognized.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Boyd's request.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Harder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. As a mostly county commissioner, that's right. Who's on his way out the door. I too, I think we have an animal control problem in our county. And so I could argue that point, but I'm with Commissioner Boyd. I think this is not the place and the time to be bringing this particular issue, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harder. I believe Commissioner Shelby. Everybody close your eyes. Mr. Shaw renews his motion for adoption of amendment number 3. Any further discussion? Properly second. We're ready to vote.
Are we voting on what? Are we voting on both?
We're voting on Mark's amendment. And you renew your motion for amendment number 1 to amendment number 4, I'm sorry. I moved on, so, Mark, would you like roll call vote on that? Okay, Commissioner Street here, Commissioner Street.
Mr. Chairman, should we just clear up where we are?
Sure.
As I understand it, Commissioner Vance made a motion to amend the amendment, add 10,000 to Bristol, is that correct?
That's correct.
Was there a second on that?
Yes, we did have a
Who
second.
provided that second?
Bob.
Bobby.
So I think we're properly constituted here. I got ahead of myself, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. Commissioner Stanton, you're not going to let me do it, are you? Go ahead. You're recognized for what reason, please?
Wouldn't Pat's amendment have to be passed first before we
No,
amend
ma'am.
it?
No, we have to pass the amendment on the amendment.
Okay.
I think we're properly situated to vote on Commissioner Vance's amendment number 1 to Commissioner Shell's amendment number 4, properly second by Commissioner Neal. Commissioner Vance would like a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on that which I just described? I think they're getting tired of hearing me do this.
Valerie?
No.
Boyd?
Yes.
Alton? No. Cole?
No.
Crawford?
No.
Gardner?
No.
Hare?
No.
Hartgrove?
No.
Carr?
No.
Aaron?
No.
Hood?
No.
Hauser? Johnson?
No.
Kilgore?
No.
McLaughlin?
No.
Morrell?
No.
Neal?
Yes.
Bobby Russell?
Yes.
Cheryl Russell?
Yes.
Show?
No.
Stanley? No. Vance?
Yes.
Williams?
Having received a majority in the negative, the amendment is rejected. We're back on amendment number 1 is rejected. We're back on amendment number 4 to item number 3. Mr. Shaw, Commissioner Herron, you're on the amendment.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask Pat if he would do one thing to try to have a compromise here. The 15,000 I can understand since the population of the animals in Kingsport. Also, I understand in Bristol that they do not have an animal shelter per se, but they do have a holding facility for 3 days while they're reaching out. And I understand they have 2 police officers and 2 vehicles that patrol that in Bristol. So what I'd like to ask Pat, if he would just amend this, and I think we can get more yes votes. Pat, if you would leave the 15,000 for Kingsport, Bristol residents also pay county taxes, and add 5,000 for Bristol and 15,000 for Kingsport, I think you'd get more yes votes. Thank you.
Commissioner Herron, I believe you just requested, and I will allow Commissioner Shaw to respond, but it will need to be amended, and he can accept that amendment. Mr. Shaw, you're recognized.
If y'all go back and look in your budget, you'll notice, and it's on page 30, that the county's budget went from 364,517 to 550,000. I don't have a problem with that. That reflects the dissolution of the SBK partnership. my long-term goal would be that we reunite and have one animal control service similar to what Washington County does, but that's not possible today. But the Bristol animals are just held briefly for a few hours and transported to Sullivan County. And therefore, I admire Joe's spirit of trying to keep people together, but I think there's nothing wrong with my amendment. I mean, 15,000 is a fairly modest amount considering the scope of the problem, and I just want to renew my amendment as written and vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Vance, you're recognized on amendment number 4.
I'd just like to make one point of information. We've had other nonprofit organizations, and one of them be the Bristol Rhythm and Roots, have made a request to the county for funding this year. They were not aware of the deadline of consideration and did not have an opportunity to go through the committee. And I accepted that because it didn't go through the process that we had set out aside to go through to make requests. We've not had a request from the city of Bristol for animal control. We have not had a formal request from the city of Kingsport. This is another request that's not gone through the process of budget. I can't support this. This is the budget that's been set. This is the time to make amendments and corrections. But these requests have not gone through the process of the committees. And if we're going to come in here and try to validate the need and the concern at the last minute when we don't have official requests, I think we're getting out of our normal process of how to handle this. I can make a motion to give $75,000 to Bristol Rhythm and Roots. I've got their proposal in my desk drawer, but they did not get it turned in time. They were not aware of it, and they'll probably come back next year and make that request. So I will not support any additional appropriations.
But shall you renew your motion?
Yes, with one comment, and gee, this is like playing tennis, back and forth, back and forth.
Kind of what we do, isn't it?
The point Mark made would be equally applicable to the resolution that we just passed the Monday in August where we had our business meeting, where we discussed animal control. I mean, we could have put that off till today or the regular budget process. So, you know, if you're going to be flexible on one thing and not flexible on the other, I mean, that's having it both ways. I am perfectly happy for my fellow commissioners to simply vote on what I propose. And you know, life goes on. I may die someday, but the county's not. And these issues are going to come up over and over again. Just vote on this, and that'll be today.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Shell renews his motion and call for the vote. I think that's where we are. Amendment number 4 to item number 3 on today's agenda is properly moved and seconded. We're ready to vote on amendment number 4. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Bowery,
No.
Boyd, Cotton, no. Cole,
No.
Crawford,
No.
Gardner,
Yes.
Hare,
No.
Wood,
No.
Carr,
No.
Aaron,
Yes.
Hood,
No.
Hauser, Johnson,
No.
Kilgore,
No.
McLaughlin,
No.
Morrell,
No.
Neal,
No.
Bobby Russell,
No.
Cheryl Russell. No. Show,
Yes.
Stanley. No. Vance,
No.
Williams. anybody like to finish your vote? Eighteen no, 2 absent.
Amendment number 4 is rejected, and we're back on item number 3 on today's budget as amended. And Commissioner Williams renews his motion for adoption of item number 3, properly seconded by Commissioner Ballard. Do we have any further discussion on item number 3 on today's agenda? Mr. Cox?
Can I make an amendment?
Yes, ma'am, you
Well,
certainly
thank you,
can.
Mayor.
Have you filed it with the clerk?
I request to amend Kingsport Parks and Recreation budget for the 2018-2019 to increase it by 10,000. And this amendment is needed to increase cost of services improvements.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of amendment to item number 3, that would be amendment 5. We have a second.
Second.
Where was that?
So.
Okay. Directly, I can't tell. We do have a second by Commissioner Hart. Oh, who was the second by, please? Would you raise your hand, Commissioner Shaw? Thank you. Have a second, properly on the floor. We're ready for discussion. Commissioner Collins, while we're discussing this, would you just write a little note and get it to the clerk? Okay. We need to file that with the clerk. Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized.
I guess my question is, where is the 10,000 going to come from? Is it going to come from the general fund?
General fund.
Do we have that in there, I guess, Larry, to be able to?
The question, Mr. Bailey, if it could be funded. Thank you. Commissioner Bailey, I guess you were going to answer that question while you were talking with me. You went away.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
the reason I asked for this request was because of the increase in services and improvement, but also we have increased Bristol Parks and Recreation 10,000.
Okay, Commissioner, adds to your discussion. Commissioner Crawford, you sought recognition.
Darlene, can you explain a little bit more of the reasoning with increased services? I mean, I think about any of these institutions here could probably come up and say they've had increased services and all of that. Specifically, give me a little more information as to what some of those increased services are.
I can. I serve as a representative of the county for the Bays Mountain Park. And the city, Kingsport City, gives $35,000 to the park, which Kingsport Parks and Recreation includes others. And we did a lot of improvement. I mean, like repairing the dam. We've redone the restrooms that haven't been redone since 1982. Put new carpet into the center. But there's just been a lot of improvement this past year or two, and there's more to come. And we're working on the sewer system now, and there's just a lot needs to be done.
Well, if this is going into the operating account for Parks and Recreation, what assurance do you have that it's going to go to Bays Mountain Park?
It does. They've been very supportive, and as I just said, I'm on the commission, and they give $35,000 to Bays Mountain Park from that.
Okay. Any further discussion? You've heard the amendment. Seeing none, we're ready to vote on amendment number 5 to item number 3 on today's budget. Commissioner, I can only see you here, just a second.
I just need a second.
You're recognized.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we just need a second on the cost of this. Pass it.
Yeah, I have trouble. Sit down. Thank you. I just heard a voice and couldn't identify. Okay, we have properly on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on amendment number 5 to item number 3?
Valerie,
Yes.
Boyd,
No.
Halton. Yes. Cole, Crawford,
No.
Gardner,
Yes.
Grubb, absent, Hare,
No.
Harper,
Yes.
Carr,
No.
Aaron,
Yes.
Hood,
No.
Bowser, absent, Johnson,
No.
Kilgore,
No.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Morrell,
No.
Neal,
No.
Bobby Russell,
Yes.
Cheryl Russell, Shaw,
Yes.
Stanley. Yes. Vance,
No.
Williams.
Yes.
Yes, 2 absent, 12 no.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Does anyone want to change their vote? Cole, do you want to vote on this one?
Darlene,
Yes.
no.
Good question.
Yes, 2 absent, and 12 no.
Having failed to receive a majority, item amendment number 5 to item number 3 is rejected, or fails. And we're back on the original amendment. Commissioner Williams, you're recognized on our original resolution, item number 3, to renew your motion.
On number 3 resolution, that's correct.
Yes, he renews his motion, seconded by Commissioner Ballard. We're ready to vote. Any further discussion? Ready to vote. Cast your vote. The board's open. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, announce the vote.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 3 is adopted. Now, that completes our agenda, but the chair has to, Chair, I'm going to recognize you, Mr. Williams, on resolution number, item number 2. And with the explanation that item number 2 passed with unanimous vote, but Commissioner Williams had properly filed an amendment with the mayor's desk and with the clerk, and based on conversations with the county attorney in the past, without a negative vote, we cannot move for reconsideration, but the county attorney has advised me that we have additional information. And Dan, we haven't talked about this one, but additional information, we can go back, bring up item number 2, with a properly filed amendment.
This, the amendment you're talking about?
Yes.
Well, I wondered how come that wasn't considered. I would just consider it as an amendment and go forward.
That was accepted by the sponsor?
No, we need a vote.
We need a vote. Quite honestly, under our rule, I don't like to disagree with the county attorney, but under our rule, the sponsor can accept an amendment without a vote.
Well, it's already been voted on. With the amendment? No. Okay.
Well, Mr. Counselor, let me ask you if my interpretation of our local rule is right, that the sponsor of a resolution may accept an amendment to his bill.
Yes, but what I'm saying is his resolution has already been voted on, so it's too late to, I mean, we can't move backwards yet.
Well, then let's stand just in a brief recess while County Attorney and I have a discussion. If we can recess here for about 5 minutes, just stay in place if you would. We have the commissioners take their seats and we'll resume our meeting. And while the commissioners are making your way back to your seats, I'm happy to report the county attorney and I agree on the handling of this. The amendment that was properly filed. So at this time, I would like to recognize Mr. Williams on the amendment that was filed.
Thank you, Mayor. After given a considerable amount of thought, and some committees discussed increase in wages for our people that work for us, and I think we can do this without increasing the total budget, but I want to read this to you. We want to amend the budget appropriating resolution to allow for each department to increase the wages of their employees by 2% to be from currently funded budgets. If the department head is not sure of sufficient funds not available, the department head will need to confer with the Director of Accounts and Budget. If it is obvious that funding is not sufficient to cover the cost including benefits, then the Director of Accounts and Budget provide funding from local fund balance. We've done this before and let them, take this money from money they already have. But the only problem we run into sometimes are offices that may have one or two people in them. It's hard to come up, with that. So there'll be some small amounts that this would let Mr. Bailey adjust to be the 2%. And I hope we can all vote for that. That would make, I think, 100% of the county employees at 2%.
You've heard the explanation for the amendment number 1 to item number 2, seconded by Commissioner Valerie. Open for discussion. Commissioner Hood, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this consideration for our county employees and support it. However, I do think maybe we deserve to be reprimanded with such a big amount of money coming at the end of the budget process. We entered a resolution on this kind of thing before and said it had to come more properly before the commission in a more timely manner. One other thing, I understand this is a COLA raise, cost of living adjustment. I appreciate Eddie saying 100% of our employees. I understand the last time that we done this, some of our department heads, constitutional officers, did not go by that directive, which I thought was a directive. They based awarded some of their raises on merit some way. So I hope you're 100% for all employees as a part of this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Commissioner Hare, your record.
Thank you. Just for the record and be clear that this is the non-school employee representatives of Sullivan County, correct? Yes.
That's already been handled.
Correct.
Level anyway, so.
I just wanted for the record that, because I'll be voting on this, I'm not voting on my
They're already done theirs, and they do it where they in the board education, so.
Gotcha.
Just as everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Mr. Sheldon.
Okay, first, if I understood this correctly, any given department chief would rearrange their budget that is contained in this document to accommodate a 2% pay increase for their employees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. It sort of begs the question is, if this was so vital, they had to have this specific amount, how can they all of a sudden redirect it? But other than that, I'm philosophically opposed to the idea of voting on a pay increase at the last minute, the very last minute, without extensive discussion and deliberation. It should have been incorporated in the budget on the front end. This is not the way to do this. anything against the employees. Employees are great. But we ought to do this in a more systematic, methodical, analytical way, rather than just spur of the moment, hey, seems like a good idea kind of approach. Thank you.
Mr. Kilgore, you're recognized.
Yes, there's, what, 4 different funds in the county, and the highway department, the school department, and, waste management, or whatever the title is. How come the school is absolved from it, and these other funds come under it? I don't believe that's a correct way of doing it. And my second comment is, even though, some folks got together and decided they could bring an amendment up without reconsideration, I don't agree with. Anytime anything is passed, the only way you can change it, and that's what we're doing, is changing what was passed by amendment without reconsideration. I just don't understand how that can happen.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. That was the reason we took the small break. I just want to confirm with the county attorney that we were on the proper track, and I certainly understand your argument. I believe Robert's rule says that for reconsideration that it can only be moved by someone who voted in the negative, but I'll have to check that. But anyway, the county attorney tells me that we're on the right track to do what Commissioner Williams has suggested we do, so we'll move forward with that. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one brief question for Commissioner Williams. I believe you did clarify that we have the funds to cover this without an increase and with minimal impact.
Yes, sir. That's why I waited so long to see how everything came out, and maybe that was an error.
I appreciate that. I had a list of things to just form my frame of mind around the vote, but I think sometimes I harken back to some of the older guys, and God rest his soul, Wayne McConnell would always say, sometimes we just need to take care of our employees, and I think that's, for me, that's today.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Hart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I, like Commissioner Kilgore, I have the same question. That how is it that one department in our county is exempting itself from where the money comes from? If the commission says employees get a raise, why don't all of them get the same raise? I guess is what I'm asking.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bailey, if he would, to go ahead and direct Commissioner Kilgore ask the question. Larry, would you speak to that?
If I understood correctly, the school department had a raise in their budget as presented and just approved. And I know the highway department submitted a 2% raise in their budget to the executive committee, and the executive committee approved it. I'm not sure how much they discussed it, but it was there, and it was approved without any discussion. Some other departments asked for it, and there was no discussion, I don't think, in the meetings. And I'm just saying, that says it's not someone's left out necessarily, or have been, it was discussed to some degree for the highway department, and no one questioned it. That's what it comes down to. I don't think there's any real issue there, because I had to go back and look at their figures and take it out, because it was in what was recommended and not recommended for the other departments. So that's kind of the status as I understand it.
Thank you, Larry. I just don't see the need for a division. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. That we have one department that would do anything, not saying they're not fair, not saying they're not doing equal, but just seems to me like we're making a difference there in allowing the education department, to do that. I'm sorry. I can't see it any other way.
Thank you, Mr. Har. Attorney Street has asked to be recognized to listen. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of the opinion that the way this has come about, that commissioners that work for Sullivan County will not be able to vote on this amendment.
So begin.
But their vote will not be counted
Right.
in the total.
Right, their vote will not be counted total and also will not be counted in the determination of a majority vote.
That's correct.
Okay.
If anybody would like to discuss that, I'd be more than happy to do so, but upon reading the statute, by the way, those statutes were changed in 2016. You know, you no longer have the Rule 4 type opportunity. Now, if it's a broad budget, I guess I'm taking an opportunity to explain, but I'll just do it briefly. If you're voting on a broad budget, you can vote, but this is an amendment affecting your pay, and the statute seems pretty clear that you can't vote on it.
Okay, and then for purposes of clarity, we would need to define an employee, since everyone here receives pay from Sullivan County. The definition of an employee would be those subject to wage and hour rules. And the reason I ask that is if somebody's going to have to raise their hand and say, I'm an employee.
Good question. I think we would have to assume that the commissioner is not defined as an employee. So the mere fact that you're a commissioner would not render you an employee.
Okay, good.
We'd have to do that or else nobody could vote.
Exactly, that's my point.
Oh, and by the way, too, and I don't know if any of the commissioners have spouses that work for the county, but the same rule applies. If you are an employee of the county or your spouse is an employee of the county, that this resolution will affect, for example, it will not affect Commissioner Hare because the raises are not going to school department employees. If you or your spouse will receive an increase in benefits under this amendment, you cannot vote.
Okay, I think that's clear. And Bill, I think we've got some discussion and I'll get to you. Mr. Hood. I'm sorry. Okay. Baxter, let me go ahead and recognize him to respond to the county attorney and then you're on. Sure.
Bill, not contract employees. Those checks still come from Sullivan County, but they're considered employees if they're a contract employee.
Go ahead, Dan, go ahead and respond to that if you would. Starting to, and I don't. We're going to take the time to do this right. Thank you. Well, I've got too many open. Baxter, would you push your request again? Dan, you're on.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's a fair question. The statute does not specifically mention the word employee. It does, however, use the term pay or benefits, which is generally used to describe what an employee receives. A contract employee is not an employee, it's a contract. That's a oxymoron, is that the right word? If you are by contract, you're a contract. You're not an employee. So, however, I would say this. If you vote on this resolution and it will increase the money coming into your pocket, then you cannot vote.
And let me add that it's incumbent upon you to notify the clerk when she asks for a vote or to not vote if this will not be on the board. So when the clerk calls the roll, it's incumbent upon you to say you're not eligible to vote. So let's go on to Commissioner Hood.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure my question about all of the eligible employees being considered, and can that properly be noted in the amendment that it's definitely a COLA increase and all eligible employees receive it?
Well, I will recognize the sponsor for that, but I would think that, well, I'm going to recognize the sponsor for it. Very good. This is a COLA that all eligible full-time employees would receive. Is that your question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
So you reword the amendment to that effect?
Well, how would you suggest it needs to be
I don't
reworded? I don't know.
This is just what you said. I think you explained it okay. But I think perhaps that needs to be written in there, Matt. I don't know, I'm sorry, but,
The resolution is written in there that it's to all the employees in the department. It's up to the department head to determine if he's got enough money in his budget to do it. And he should have enough, with the exceptions of maybe an office like Dan has, where there's 2 employees, and that may not be enough. So that will have to be worked out with Mr. Bowles.
we'll trust them to make it to 2%.
All full-time employees, I think that's what you're saying. Okay, Dan,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would, you just said something, so this is further restricted to apply only to full-time employees?
Yes.
Okay. Glad to clarify that, but if you may tolerate me 1 second, I wanted to come back to the question about contract employees. I guess when I heard that question, I was thinking about us contracting with businesses, but I don't really know that we have any contract employees, except I think maybe we have a doctor in the jail that we contract with. But anyway, technically speaking, a lot of corporations have contracts with their employees. For example, I'm sure the CEO of Eastman has a contract. The football coach of Tennessee has a contract, but they're considered employees. So I guess I'd have to get more specific questions as to what exactly we're talking about. But let's just default to say that if you stand to benefit, if your pay or benefits increase as a result of this resolution, then you can't vote on it.
Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
I just wanted to make a point. The reason I'm going to support Eddie's amendment is last year when I made the motion to give the county employees raises, there was concerns of the county commission voting to give raises to employees, but the department head, specifically elected officials, had not made that request to give those employees a raise. This year, the amendment states that they can give up to 2%. They can't give a raise without the county commission agreeing to give the 2%. So it's still up to the constitutional office holders' rights to where they want to give the 2% or not. We can't tell them that they have to, because they're a constitutional office holder. So we tried to change the verbiage in it this year to where that we will support them if they agree to give a 2% raise to their employees. If they choose not to do so, then that's their decision, not this county commission. The raises was brought on at the beginning of the budget process, and at that point in time, we had no idea what the budget overall was going to look like to where we got here today. So based on nutrition, with people leaving, people retiring, there's money built inside the budget and payroll to basically to fund this 2% raise to most of it for most departments. So the impact is going to be minimal to the county, but it's also going to recognize the county employees by giving them a raise. And let me say this, I've been retired for 7 years, and I got a 2.3% raise in my state retirement. I've had more raises being retired than ever did when I worked here. So it's important that when we sit here and look at this budget, that we look at the cost of living for our employees to keep them up in the trend of their salaries, so when they come time to retire, that their compensation is up at the level it should be. As a retiree, I get a 2.3% raise, and the county employees get nothing. That just pushes them farther down in the pay cycle of working for the county. So it's very important that we keep up with the cost of living.
Glad we're back on the amendment. Commissioner Russell.
Yes, sir. My question is for Mr. Street. In my current situation, I am an employee, as I see here today, but as of September 1st, I will not be an employee.
In my opinion, I think you can vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris.
Yes, sir. I don't recall anybody saying if this is going to be retroactive to July 1st. Did anybody mention that?
Commissioner Wicks.
Excuse me, to the county budget director, whenever they will put this thing in effect. I would assume it would go back to July 1. However, that's up to them.
Up to the department head.
The rest of the budget will go back to them.
Commissioner Johnson.
I thought it was done. Just to clarify, the department head's gonna have leverage to give the increase or not. It's not like a new revenue stream is gonna go to them to cover it, or will it cover it if they don't have it? So let's say if I'm the department head and I wanna give it, but I don't have it, we're gonna cover it.
Attorney Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I'm going to have to change my opinion on Commissioner Russell. Commissioner, that last question caused me to change my opinion. I forgot that this is retroactive to July 1, so his pay will be affected from for July and August. So although he won't be affected thereafter, he will benefit for July and August, so he cannot vote.
Thank you, Mr. Street. That's what we do here. We fix it. We fix it. When we get it wrong, we fix it. Angie, you're recognized.
I guess this is to Eddie. You were saying that this is full-time employees only, that it doesn't go to part-time, or?
Full-time employees only, what we said a while ago, yes,
Full-time only?
yes.
Any further discussion on amendment number 1 to item number 2 on today's agenda? Now, this is wholly standing on its own. Item number 2 has passed. But this is a properly filed amendment. Any other discussion? Commissioner Street, Attorney Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These commissioners need to be clear, because you are not abstaining. You are, can't think of the word to use. Huh? Well, yes, ineligible, there's a word for it. Let's just say you're recusing yourself, and that way your vote won't be counted. If you abstain, your vote is counted. You just chose not to vote. And by the way, I've mentioned that before, but I'll take this opportunity to mention that. In the way the county commission is set up, there's 24 members and it takes 13 votes. If you abstain, it's the same thing as a no vote. But with that said, if you are not voting because you cannot vote under law, then you are not counted in the total number of votes. So please, let's use the word recuse.
Recuse.
Don't say abstain.
About ineligible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I believe we're ready to vote. And we're going to ask Madam Clerk to take a roll call vote. And if you, just reiterate, if you're not eligible to vote, just say you recuse yourself or you are ineligible. And that way we can determine what the proper majority is. Madam Clerk, take the vote on the amendment.
Phew, you guys are breaking me in good. Bowery?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Cole?
Recuse.
Crawford?
Yes.
Gardner?
Yes.
Grubb absent. Hare?
Yes.
Park Road?
Yes.
Har?
Yes.
Heron?
Yes.
Hood? Hauser absent. Hood, would you like to vote on this?
No, but I'd like, yes, I want to vote yes.
How would you like to vote?
Yes, I want to vote yes. Please vote, register me as a yes vote. And I want to tell you something after the vote's taken.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kilgore? McLaughlin?
Yes.
Morrell?
Yes.
Neal?
Yes.
Bobby Russell?
Recuse.
Cheryl Russell?
Yes.
Shull?
No.
Stanley,
Yes.
Vance,
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Eighteen yes, 2 no, 2 absent, 2 recused.
With 22 eligible votes, the motion is adopted, having received the necessary majority.
Mr. Mayor, I need to go, can I say something?
Yeah, I was gonna do that. I wanted to kind of clean this up first. The motion is adopted, to item, amendment number 1 to item number 2. Mr. Hood, for what reason?
Yeah, I just want to tell you about that I need to go to participate in an important activity for Liberty Celebration as we're awarding $3,500 to the Military Honor Guard that provides services to military funerals in all of Upper East Tennessee and Southwest Virginia at the rate of a few hundred each year, and we hope that this money will help them buy a better band that they desperately need.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. We appreciate the work. Mr. Hood, we're going to have a, Mr. Hood, we're going to have a little ceremony here that, I understand you have to go, but if you'll come back by my office sometime this week or next week, we had to miss you here, but you go ahead, that's important. Thank you. Ms. Coffin, for what reason?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to ask for a recount on the amendment that I had to increase Kingsport Parks and Recreation 10,000. I spoke with a few commissioners during the recess, and I don't think they fully understood all of it, and I think I could get the votes to do that. And keep in mind that especially Base Mountain Park, they serve the whole Sullivan County along with all of Kingsport Park and Recreation. There's more, but I would like for a recount. I believe your discussion with the county attorney and certainly briefly with me, Ms. Coffin, said that you would like to propose a further amendment to item number 3 on today's budget, on today's agenda. And I believe that would, based on discussion with the county attorney and based on our previous action, we'll allow that. So we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Ed, you're trying to get my attention by waving that finger.
No, I said I'll take it.
Oh, second, good, thank you. I needed a second. You've heard the motion and it's second and it's properly on the floor, and I will recognize Commissioner Boyd for discussion.
Well, does Base Mountain still charge our county students to go there, which Bristol doesn't for our nature center? That's one of the reasons we had some differences in spending. This is another one that, as far as I know, wasn't requested by the agency. And, I mean, I understand, Darlene, you're just trying to make up for where you saw Bristol got something Kingsport didn't. But when I left here 4 years ago, we said we weren't going to add new nonprofits, but somehow Healthy Kingsport got $10,000 put in there. I didn't fight it this time. I didn't say, what the heck happened there? What did you guys do? What'd you add something? We weren't going to add. And I think the motivation here is solely to Bristol got something we didn't get. Now, I wasn't in the committees that recommended this and everything, and we've already voted on this, but, and this Bristol versus Kingsport stuff will continue, I guess. when the new commission comes in, but I don't see the justification for this with any kind of facts or any request from the agency or anything. So anyway, I would urge us to stick with the way we voted the first time and come back next time, budget, and have all the facts and figures, and if there's some big reason or something and they ask, then new commission can consider it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Kilgore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to what Commissioner Boyd said, I still have a problem with the process.
I understand.
I don't agree with it, and I will vote no as I did on the last one because I don't agree with the process.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. I have great respect for your opinion, I always do. Commissioner Harris.
Yes, sir, thank you. In regards to Bays Mountain, that facility helps in tourists coming in. It brings in a lot of tax dollars for people coming in because it's a beautiful facility. They just got a new barge. It seats 50 people. They're redoing things. They're having to work on the sewer system up on Bays Mountain. And also, as far as the entrance fee, it's $4 per vehicle. But if there are any veterans, all you do is show them your veteran card and it's free. And also it's free for the activities there on Bays Mountain as well. And that facility is not just for Kingsport. It brings in money through tourism and it impacts the entire county. And I would hope that we would vote yes. I'm also like Bill as far as the process. We need to have a process, but things here have changed today, and I believe this is a worthwhile thing, and I'd like to see us vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Commissioner Crawford, you're recognized.
Again, the process is totally out of kilter to me. I think there's not an agency on here that wouldn't like to have an increase. Well, I think the protocol should be followed. You make a request, we discuss it in committees, make a recommendation, and then go from there. I just do not like the process, but I will support this now.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Any further discussion on the motion? Probably good. You're recognized.
Commissioner Boyd, it is free to the students that come. They do not charge. And I represented the Kingsport Parks and Recreation on the committee, and this was talked about in the committee, but it wasn't taken to the budget committee. So it's nothing new, and I would ask for you to reconsider and vote for a 10,000 increase. And Bristol and Kingsport Parks and Recreation has always been equal. As long as I can remember, this would be the first.
Mr. Boyd.
Well, thanks for letting me know that about the students, because for many years, county students, when they went to Bays Mountain, had to pay a fee, and they've never had to at the Nature Center in Bristol. And because this is coming up at the last minute, I don't have all the facts and figures, but we've seen it in the past where, yes, and I know all the wonderful things that Bays Mountain does, but you know, for those of you who live in Kingsport, there is a world outside of Kingsport. Our park at Steel Creek has a nature center, and it, last I saw, had higher attendance. Well, I'm just making that was a joke. I'm sorry. I just want to say, I hear all this flowery things about what they do, and I don't disagree with any of it. And I do know they had a problem with their sewer that I would have hoped City of Kingsport would have put a new sewer line in for them, but I saw it was going to be very expensive. So, and I didn't want to fight so much. I just
if you don't want to, let's don't.
Sir?
I said, if you don't want to, let's don't.
Well, I'm just saying, you put up some stuff, and I'm saying, because it's last minute, I don't have the things to show you, but they haven't always been equal. When I first became commissioner, we were getting nothing for our parks, and Bays Mountain was getting like 15 grand a year. And we went back and figured out that county students paid nothing to go to our park. They did to Bays Mountain. Bays Mountain was getting money, Bristol wasn't getting anything. So we did rectify that, so I didn't want to fight, but I just disagree with the last minute nature and no real facts to base it on, but I'm not gonna fight you anymore, but I would just hope it going forward, just like the EMS and the rescue squads and the fire department, you figure out what's a fair, equitable distribution of funds going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyd, and 24 of you have a vote, and that's a very precious thing, and that's the way you, I guess, reinforce your opinion. Any further discussion on the amendment? We're on the amendment and ready to vote. Madam Clerk, would you take the amendment number, I believe 6, to item number 3? I stand to be correct.
Lowry,
Yes.
Boyd,
No.
Calton. Cole. Crawford,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Grove absent.
Yeah, yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Heron,
Yes.
Hood, he's out. Hauser absent. Johnson,
Yes.
Kilgore,
No.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
Neal,
No.
Bobby Russell,
Yes.
Cheryl Russell. No. Show,
Yes.
Stanley. Yes. Vance,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
7, would anyone like to change their vote? 17 yes, 4 no, 3 absent.
I received necessary majority item number 6 to amendment number 6 to item number 3 is adopted. Mr. Hart, for what reason?
I just wanted to, I think what I've heard is that the folks are making reference to is, I believe it was Ralph Carr who made a Christmas time resolution gesture to give everybody $500 or something, and in the past. And I think that's what they're reference to, that kind of thing not come up again without it being introduced and talked about. I think that's what it was in reference to. And I have to say I agree. Totally. I voted yes, but I totally disagree with what happened.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Any further business to come? That completes our agenda. Any further business to come before the commission? And we're not through yet. I'll be happy for anybody to speak, but this will be the last commission meeting of this commission. And I certainly don't want it to go by without expressing my gratitude to you, the commissioner, for your service to the county these past 4 years. Gosh, spending that much time together is, our relationship lasted longer than a lot of marriages do today. And you build closer relationship. We don't always agree. We don't even always agree on how we disagree. But we always try to get the will of the commission. Now, we may bend a rule occasionally to get there. I don't think we do anything illegal. I think there's always room for debate. And I appreciate your all's patience with me over these last 4 years as we've got to that point, which is we act on the will of the commission, not the will of the chairman, not the will of the elected officials, but the will of the commission. So, and if you will, and if the audience will stay with us, we have those of you who are leaving us, we have a memento that we would like to share with you and for you to take home with you. to remember your service here and to maybe inspire you in the future to come back and serve again. Mark, I'm going to recognize you, and I've got the table set up over here, and I like I say, I have a presentation, and I believe Angela or someone's going to take a picture. Now you can take the picture by yourself, or I'll do it with you, your choice. But we do have a memento to take with you, and so Mark, I'm going to recognize you, and then after we do this, and stay with us if you can. If you can't, we appreciate you coming, but I certainly don't want to let this go by without acknowledging the sacrifice and contribution you make to your community. Mark?
I'd just like to say something humble, and this is not political or anything like that. I'm very humbled to serve with you all for the last 4 years. There's a lot of great things that's taken place by this commission in the last 4 years. We may not see the results of it today, but there's going to be a lot of progress made in this county involving our school system. And I want to thank each and every one of you all for your friendship and also being a colleague. And I look and admire each and every one of you all, even if we've not agreed. But you all have done a tremendous job for this county, and this county is in a lot better shape today than it was 4 years ago. And I appreciate each and every one of you all. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mark. I do want to get the state flag up. And Bill, I believe this goes on the left side facing us, right?
Yeah. I believe I know why you moved that flag.
Did you notice the clock was moving?
Yeah, I was see what time it was. I noticed.
And I hate to rearrange this, but I want this picture to be important. Yeah. If you excuse me. I'll reposition this flag and I'll be right back in. Attorney Dan Street has, we just had a brief discussion about the procedure. We want to make sure we get this right, so he's going to explain to you our joint interpretation of some of the action we just took for the record, because there could be a question. We want to make sure when we leave here today we've got it right. Dan, you're recognized. If you would recognize Dan, turn him on.
Somebody made the statement about Commissioner Carr making a motion to give everybody a bonus at Christmas time. Well, it made me remember it actually wasn't Commissioner Carr, it was Commissioner Crawford. And we passed this resolution. I can't keep track of all this stuff, but I apologize. But what this resolution says is that any motion to spend money has to come on by a written resolution. We treated this as an amendment, an oral amendment, even though it was reduced to writing, it was not a resolution. Now, the motion to give the employees that 2% raise passed by 18 votes, which is clearly sufficient to suspend the rules and do away with this Crawford resolution. So what I suggest is that without objection, if you object, we're going to have to suspend the rules and re-vote on it. But without without objection, we are going to assume that by 18 votes, we do what we do on first reading, which is we do two things at the same time. We suspend the rules and we vote on the motion. So without objection, the record will reflect that this body suspended this resolution, the Crawford resolution, in passing the 2% raise. Does everybody understand that, and is there objection?
As chairman, without objection.
I'm not going to object, but that's a train run, thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you, Dan. Now, in no particular order, I'm going to ask folks to come forward, and I believe Angela is going to take a picture for us and suitable for framing. And we will send those to you. So, as I say, in no particular order, if you will join me up here when I call your name, Mr. Andy Hare. Mr. Hare, this is the one term. We're going to have you with us, and let's step over here in front of the flag, Andy, if you will. And smile for the folks.
I am.
That's what you tell us when. You tell us when. Commissioner Mark Mallory, would you come up, Mark? I believe Commissioner Mallory is 2 terms, Mark, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service.
My hand standing up.
I didn't say that. That's good. Thank you. Joe Hare, Commissioner Joe Hare. I believe Commissioner Joe Hare has a combined 10 years of service. Is that right, Joe? You have 2 terms and a portion.
Yeah, 4 terms.
4 terms. 4 terms, okay. During 4 terms of the commission, I apologize. We started together.
2002.
We did. Look at the camera. Is that good, Angela? Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Commissioner Stanley, thank you for helping me. Commissioner Brian Boyd, my good friend. Brian would have been one of those red shirt freshmen. Brian, how many terms have you had? 3 and a half. 3 and a third. 3 and a third. Brian, thank you. Good. Mr. Cheryl Russell. Cheryl, thank you. And Cheryl is completing her first term, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Got it? Thank you. Commissioner Bill Kilgore. I believe, Bill, I believe you had 3 terms on the Sullivan County Commission.
Correct.
And for those of you who don't know, Bill and I grew up together, but he was a lot older than I was. and I always looked up to him.
About 7 months.
As a kid, I looked for his guidance, and here I look for his guidance. Commissioner Bob Neal. Bob, how many terms? 2 terms. Bob served with distinction. We're hoping a lot of these folks hang around with us. Thank you, Bob. Mr. Bobby Russell and the county circuit court clerk elect. Well, we hate to lose you, but we know you're going on to a very important job for our county. Thank you. Mr. McCart. I may need it for this vote.
Yeah.
Mac, completing his first term?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mac runs on for this, I know we'll be sitting a lot in. Mr. Matthew Johnson. And Matthew makes his way up, and I believe, Matthew, this is your second term this year. These plaques are made up of the name tags that have been on the desk for 4 years. So, thank you, Matt. Mr. Kip LeBlanc.
All right.
Here we are. Get am I correct in that you had two terms? We appreciate your service, and you've been a faithful servant. And we'll take this picture and I'll tell you about kids. What kid doesn't remember? He doesn't remember this, but I do. He was my basketball coach when I was in the 5th grade. and he wiped it out of his memory. I played for the Monogram Club. I'm going to leave this one for last. I guess you overheard me. I said I was going to leave this one for last. I don't have the words to call this next person up and to tell him how much we appreciate his service. I'm just not that articulate, but over time we'll be able to say that. So Eddie Williams, would you come up? I'd like to read this to you. Yes, thank you for your 39 years of service as an officer and Sullivan County Commissioner. And I hope we got that number right, Eddie. Did we? Okay, as most of you know, Eddie served as budget director before he came to the commission, and he had a head start on all of us. So congratulations and thank you for your service.
Hey.
And again, we hope that some of these folks stay around with us that are leaving, and we hope they'll be around the courthouse. Eddie, thank you.
Okay, I just want to say one thing. I started up here, the budget was $11 million in 1969. That's where we started from. And now we're 161 million. And I've learned a lot more here from you all and those that have served before you, I'm sure that I contributed. And I'm very lucky and very thankful that I could serve and do that. Thank you.
We, as most of you know, Jeannie Gammon retired, and we certainly want to bring Jeannie back and recognize her and thank her for her service. She couldn't be here today, but we will ask her back for the next commission meeting. And all the leaving officials, the officials that left office, we want to thank them for their service. If I start naming them, I'll leave somebody out. But we live in a time of, it's unusual. It's not how we grew up. It's a time where civility seems to take a vacation sometime.
Yep.
But I'm proud that this commission has served with dignity for 4 years and with a strong purpose. So as long as we can keep raising with us the way we were raised, to be civil to our people and that we can disagree and be agreeable. This commission room will continue to be this. So thank you for your legacy. And as I say, I hope those of you who are leaving us, I hope you'll stay around with us and come back and work with us. And I will be calling on you. Thank you. Thank you all for staying with us. Mr. Bauer.
Motion to adjourn.
Without objection, we are adjourned.